Some might argue this is the most iconic car ever, so why would they do this? If you're new here, my name's Trent, this is HWYSpec, and these are the 3 best retro supercar reboots. So there are lots of retro cars that get rebooted all the time. The Ford Mustang, the Dodge Challenger, the Fiat 500. But no, we want to talk about the supercars, right? Well, at least I do. So that's what we're talking about. And to get us kicked off, we're gonna talk about the Porsche 911 GT2. The GT2 was available in the 993 body style, and boy was this thing aggressive. It was beautiful in all the best ways. It was an RWB Porsche before RWB started RWBing Porsches. That makes sense. And this thing was cool. Taking a rear-wheel drive turbocharged vehicle and throwing a bunch of horsepower at it was just a recipe for epicness.
Is that even a word?
Very limited in terms of its production and was literally made as a homologation requirement for GT2 racing. In 1998, this thing made 450 horsepower, and they only made 57 road cars. Now, Porsche with the 996 generation, it took them a couple of years to come out with the 996 GT2. It originally came with 456 horsepower and was later bumped up to 476 horsepower. And again, with the 997 version, there was a brief hiatus, but once it came out, it was making 523 horsepower. But on May 4th, 2010, they introduced the GT2 RS. This thing made 612 horsepower in a rear-wheel drive vehicle. 0 to 60 of 3.5 seconds, and Porsche actually did produce 500 of these. This is where Porsche decided to take a break with the Porsche GT2. There was 5 years difference in production between the 997 generation and the 991 generation GT2. And Porsche, they decided to come out swinging. They said, from now on, we are only offering the RS model. So although the rest of this list has a lot of vehicles that spent a lot more time between iterations, I think this deserves a spot on the list because Porsche decided to go epic with their 991 GT2 RS. It came out swinging with 700 PS. This was the most powerful production 911 ever built. It was fitted exclusively with a 7-speed PDK transmission, and despite making that much horsepower, it still managed to hook up enough to get 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds, which is incredibly impressive. And it has a top speed of 211 miles per hour. This is even with a giant wing on the back of it. The roof was made of magnesium, several body parts were made out of carbon fiber, the rear and side windows were made of polycarbonate, and the exhaust system was made of titanium. And this is where Porsche gets a real nod on this list, as they introduced the HWYSpec pack. This reduced weight by 66 pounds. This is in addition to the fact that they'd already reduced the weight significantly with all those carbon, titanium, and polyurethane parts. When vehicles are easily over 6,000 pounds with batteries nowadays, the fact that this had a 3,241 pound curb weight was incredible. And that HWYSpec pack took another 66 pounds off of it. And this of course included magnesium wheels that you see regularly on Porsche RS models. The planned production was 1,000 cars, however 4 of those were lost when a ship sank in early 2019, and Porsche did restart production to finish those vehicles off. In September 2017, it set a Nürburgring lap time of 6 minutes 47 seconds, averaging a speed of 114 miles per hour. At the time, this was the fastest production car lap time. So although there was only 5 years between the previous GT2 RS and this GT2 RS, I still consider it a retro car reboot because Porsche didn't have to make this. Nobody was forcing their hand, but they did, and it blew everybody's socks off. So we can only hope now that we've waited several years that the 992 generation GT2 RS comes out and it will again make its way onto this list. Next on this list is a vehicle that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the Dodge Viper. For those not familiar, I did own a 1994 first generation red RT10, which is the car I dreamed of as a child and had the poster of. And although it survived 4 generations, Dodge said, we're done with this thing, let's get rid of the Viper, its time has come and gone. And of course, many of us mourned the loss of the Dodge Viper, because there was really nothing else like it. No traction control, no safety features, just a V10 very crudely bolted to some wheels, and as it went on, it was less and less crude, but when you compare it to mine, where I had clip-in windows and basically a toupee to stick on the top. Its beginnings were very humble. So when rumors started swirling of Dodge bringing back the Viper in 2013, everybody was understandably a little bit excited. And that ended up being the case, especially for me. This new Viper took all of the attributes that I loved about the Viper and gave it a nicer interior, a smoother ride, a decent amount more usability, but it didn't lose the soul. It was still a manual transmission, still a V10, still making tons of brute horsepower by displacement only, but had some niceties on the inside, and you could option it with some soft Nappa leather if you wanted to. But of course, they still had to introduce some additional options like the TA model. It had more advanced aerodynamics, which actually lowered the top speed to just 199 miles per hour, but it did add quite a bit of downforce to the vehicle. Of course, Dodge wasn't satisfied and introduced an ACR model and the GTC model, which added a ton of customization options, something that you usually only get from European brands. Customization program offered over 8,000 colors and 24,000 different painted stripe combinations. Had 10 different wheel options, 16 different trims, and 6 aero options in addition to a bunch of other options that we don't even know about. Dodge claims there was a total of 25 million different build combinations. But of course, offering the ACR edition, which is now commanding significant money, really took that crude first generation Viper and turned the dial way up, way past 11, and just made for an epic supercar that was befitting of the Viper name. Some people thought maybe the Viper had gotten a little too soft, but not this one. And finally, that brings us to the most iconic car of them all, the Lamborghini Countach. The Countach found its way onto the walls of many young men who dreamed of that car and its brute excessiveness. Why did it need all those wings and scoops? Who knows? But we loved it for it. And Lamborghini introduced a limited version of the Countach based on the Aventador, and collectively a lot of people went, really?
So then what were they thinking?
A lot of people were not a fan, and I get that. I was one of them. I was like, why would they do that to the Countach name? That all changed when I saw one in person. And this thing is so much more than an Aventador. Yes, sitting inside of it, it has the Aventador feel, has the Aventador sound. But this body was way more bespoke than I thought it would be. And as many people may disagree with me, I think it is the best retro car reboot of supercars of all time. There was quite a gap between the two. Technology had come a long way, and Lamborghini took advantage of that. There's a reason why they can command big money still today. That's what I've got for you. Make sure to check out some of my other videos and drop a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree with some of those choices. And I will catch you on the next one.